So just to make sure that we are clear in what's happening, the time is now 6:22. At our typical time of 5:30, we did not have a quorum. At that point in time, we referred to Robert's Rules of Order, which discusses the proceedings in the absence of a quorum, which indicates in the absence of a quorum, any business transacted, except for the procedural actions noted in the next paragraph, is null and void. But if a quorum fails to appear at a regularly properly called meeting, the inability to transact business does not detract from the fact that the society's rules requiring the meeting to be held were complied with, and the meeting was convened even though it had to adjourn immediately. The only action that can legally be taken in the absence of a quorum is to fix the time to which to adjourn, or to recess, or to take measures to obtain a quorum. In the last category, a motion that absent members be contacted during a recess and asked to attend would represent such a measure. As the situation we had was we needed one more council member in order to obtain a quorum who was actually en route and could not join us telephonically, we made the decision to recess till 6:20, at which point we would reconvene. We now have a quorum and we will proceed with business, so I would like to call the meeting to order.
Ed Sunday here.
Hi, Mr. Sunday, we're just calling the meeting to order. So, Stacia, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. We have roll call, so Stacia, can you please take that for us?
Steve Jarvis.
Here.
Bill Miner.
You're on the phone.
Jim Peterson. John Johnson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum with one member absent. So the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of approval of 12/23/2019 agenda, approval of 12/9/2019 meeting minutes, approval of claims, approval of reappointment of Raleigh Nome to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and approval of appointment of Rachel Farrar to the Library Board. Do we have any discussion?
I can move the city administrator and Connie Walters down to action items.
So that'll be action item 6A1 for the city administrator, and action item 6A2 for Connie Walters. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion to approve with items so noted.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Jarvis. Roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
John Johnson.
Yes.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Motion approved. We'll move on to public comments. Members of the public may speak on any matter not on the agenda, and remarks need to be limited to 2 minutes. We've got one member of the public in attendance and one on the phone. Are there any public comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed on to action item 6A1, approval of city administrator wages. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to pay them city.
Motion Alderman Jarvis to approve. Is there a second?
I will second, Mayor.
Second Alderman Minor. Roll call vote, please, Stacia.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
John Johnson.
No.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
Motion carried 2-3. Action item 6A2, payment of Connie Walters, Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll make the motion to pay Connie.
Motion by Alderman Jarvis. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second Alderman Minor. Roll call vote, please.
Bill Miner.
Yes.
John Johnson.
No.
Steve Jarvis.
Yes.
Motion carries 2-3 vote. Action item 6A, approval of South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance intergovernmental contract. Stacia.
This is a contract that's been in place for many, many years, long before I even started. But they just changed a few terms in the contract Otherwise, it's exactly the same. The main one was changing chairman and vice chairman to chair and vice chair. So,
Okay. Any conversation, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Alderman Jarvis, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Johnson, roll call vote, please, Stacia?
Steve Jarvis,
Aye.
John Johnson,
Aye.
Bill Minor.
Yes.
Unanimous, motion approved. Report items, Common Council. Let's start with Alderman Minor on the phone. Do you have anything to report?
Yeah, I have several items. I forgot at the last meeting to discuss the news release from the sheriff's office. There was a alcohol compliance check in Hill City on November 25th, and 6 businesses, Shoot Rooster, Crawls, Heart of the Hills Exxon, Heart of the Hills West Conoco, Dollar General, and Hill City Cafe all passed. So we had no one violating any alcohol laws, so that was good news.
Yes.
Phoned into the EDC meeting on the 19th. They reported they're getting lots of interest from buyers for the homes in the new TIF. EDC is going to work and coordinate with Skull Construction on this master list of potential buyers. They're also going to work in conjunction with Skull on offering like first-time home buyer classes, how to obtain credit classes, and coordinate with banks and realtors so that it's a complete process, you know, for those homes going in the TIF. I followed up with Janet from the Chamber on the first quarter advertising budget. We specifically earmarked $10,000 for that in our 2020 budget. And Janet reported that she'd had some meetings with the businesses to get input. They're now finalizing their ad strategy, and it's two-pronged. One, to promote in general Hill City businesses are open, and 2, to promote our special events, which will be happening January, February, and March. So they're going to be putting together their ad campaign and getting going on promoting like a 150-mile radius from Hill City with that advertising budget. And the last thing I have is I checked the number of YouTube views for the 3 council meetings that are posted. We're sitting at 90, 86, and 29. So apparently somebody's out there watching it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Bill. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Alderman Jarvis.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Alderman Johnson.
Nope.
Okay, as far as the mayor report out, I attended the planning and zoning meeting last week. There was additional discussion on the sign ordinance. They are still reviewing that, and I would anticipate that there may be some changes to it. So at some point that will be making its way back to us for further review. There was an action item that they had, which was to approve excavation over at the new site for the affordable housing. So the intent from Jim Skull is that he put a roadway in there. So he just wanted to rough in the roadway so they know where they can start to target utilities and they can start to mark off the lots. And that was approved on Monday. On Tuesday, I saw the road being put in over there. So there's progress that's being made on that. The last thing that's notable that came up at the meeting has to do with a petition that was received and reviewed. as a result of the petition, a task force was put together to address transient vendors, those that are not open for a long period of time but still come in here. Several of them do use tents. So at the meeting, the ask of planning and zoning was to understand if planning and zoning now wanted to take this up as an item to do additional research to potentially look at from an ordinance perspective. And the Planning and Zoning Commission agreed that they will take that up and they will do additional work. So there is really nothing that I foresee in the very extremely near future, but at some point that may be coming before the city council to address. So that's something in the future. The other thing that I wanted to address, and I know that people will be dialing in so they may be able to hear this, Attorney Frank Bettman has resigned as the City of Hill City's attorney effective January 1st. It's sad to see Frank go. I think that Frank did a lot for our town. He was here for a lot of critical times and incidents that were not so savory for us and was able to help and protect the city. I think Frank has personally put up with a lot of negativity and things were said questioning his personal style and his character. I commend Attorney Bettman for hanging in there as long as he did, ensuring that things were progressing forward, and now it's time that he has chosen to move on. So what we will be doing in the interim is we will be working with the law firm of Gunderson Palmer, Talbot Wazorski, and I'm going to need to practice that a few times, but Talbot will be our contact right now. Gunderson Palmer handles the municipal attorney activities for other towns, such as Deadwood, and there's a listing of other towns. So they have agreed that they would help us in the interim. And then sometime in the January timeframe, I will be kicking off what's called a request for proposal. So this is the opportunity for us to understand who's out there, who would be of interest, and what are we dealing with. At some point, I would expect that that information will be used to make a decision. I don't know if that will be with this board or we'll be getting close to election time, so that's not too far away. So depending on how we sit there, that information can be used for further engagements with attorneys. So that's on the table. And the last thing I just wanted to mention is the city has officially received notice that an appeal has been filed in the 2-2 tie vote lawsuit. So the procedures that will come, or how this will take shape from there, is the next step will be for the plaintiff and the plaintiff's attorney to order the transcript from the hearing, and they have 10 days to do that. Once they receive the transcript, then they have 45 days from that date to file their appellate brief. After their brief is filed, then the defendant or the city will have 45 days to receive the appellate brief and then comment on that as well. So we've got a little bit of a timeline that's associated with this. That's all I know at this point. I don't know how the state of South Dakota actually prioritizes the different cases that they hear. I do know that South Dakota is one of the only states that does hear all cases that are submitted for appeal. So it will be heard by the Supreme Court. I just don't know at what point in time it's going to go on the docket or what the timeline will be once it does go on the docket. So that's as much information as we have right now. And that's all I had at this point. For those of you who may have been here earlier or not on the phone, Brett McMacken is not with us. He unfortunately had to leave ill today, but what he did is he left information that he had in the capable hands of Stacia. So Stacia, walk us through what you have.
I wanted to ask, on the sign meetings, was there much input from the public, business owners and whatever come up?
So there were people that showed up to the meeting. Danny has the exact numbers, and we'll see that in her reports. I think we had a total of 3 or 4 people that came to the first meeting. In that case, it was Victor who was kind of using it as an opportunity to put his concerns on the table that we had discussed in session. Christy Hawthorne was here just to advise that she was in support. And then there was another gentleman with his ride, so he really didn't have any input. The next one that we had during the council meeting, we were lucky enough to have Alderman Jarvis and Alderman Minor on the phone, so they were able to hear what was happening. We heard some input, so we did hear Shane Schreiner talk a little bit, and other than that, there really wasn't too much else.
That's them more than anybody. I would
Yeah,
hope they'd get involved.
Yep, there wasn't too much else. So the Planning and Zoning Commission did receive additional information. There were some good suggestions. One of them was dealing with grandfathering and what does that actually mean. So they went back and they were going to put additional verbiage in there to clarify that, but there was already something existing. So they made it clear that that existing language applied to grandfathering. So there were things that came out of it. It was nice to see because it was communication. You know, and people don't always agree, but it's good that you don't, because when you have differing ideas, you can make a good end product. So that did happen.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And Stacia?
Okay, Brett left me his little notes. As you can see, the sidewalk project, they are on a break this week and possibly next week due to the holiday. And they will see what they can do forth with the weather after that. The lower sidewalk is completely done. On the one side, it is open to be used. The railing will be installed at the beginning or mid-January, according to his notes. The bid board project, the electrical is 95% done on the alley and should be completed next week.
Okay.
The water reservoir, it says he's working with rural water and they've been discussing the construction timing. And he chatted with Meg Warner concerning the train schedule and the cross timing with the construction. And then the bridge project, he's coordinating with the Forest Service. I know he's been having several phone calls with them going back and forth regarding that. And we also need to update our special land use permit that we have with them.
Okay. So thank you, Stacia. So just to add a little bit, I do attend the sidewalk meetings, so to add some additional information in there, the weather is going to be the big telltale in how much they can actually get done. They had hoped that they'd have that whole site completed, so then they'd not do any work until March and then pick up again in March and finish that whole side by Desperado. We've had some extremely mild weather the last couple of days, so after the holiday break, we'll see what happens. The railing is due to come in, as Brett indicated, probably sometime mid to late January. I have heard some folks that are not pleased with the fact that the railing is going to extend all the way in front of those businesses. So what I do want to do, and I will address it at an upcoming council meeting when we do have more of an audience, although they can see this on YouTube as well, is that what happened was there was a cutout to allow access to the beef jerky store and to allow access to the Hill City Cafe. The railing will go completely in front of that. So they removed the ramp that was there, which was very unsafe because it was plywood. So when snow got on that, it was extremely slippery. They removed the ramp and then they basically cut access through that one space. It is more difficult. You do have to go around to either the middle of the block or to the end of the block in order to be able to get up on that upper sidewalk. However, there is a timeline that has been created. At our next meeting, I will provide additional facts and information on the date that the city actually took this to the South Dakota Supreme Court. Originally, that plan was in place and the city had asked that we be given the ability to put in 2 walk-ups right there. So one right there and one a little bit further down the block, so people didn't have to go to either end. And we were told by the DOT that it wasn't possible because of handicap accessibility. You had to have a ramp wherever you had a step, even though the step was just a few inches. So we did actually take that to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the DOT. So we are not able to put that step up there. We don't have a ramp, and it's going to be the way it is. So again, I know I've heard people, and I myself am like, do I really have to walk all the way around? But it's kind of a fact of life. If we want to maintain that accessibility and deal with those guidelines, then that's what we have to do. But I'll get those dates, specific dates, and I'll put them on the table for the rest of the public. Other than that, I had talked a little bit about it in a few meetings before, but what you will start to see is you're going to start to see key milestone dates. So when Brett does a report out, we're going to talk about here's what's next, here's the date, and here's where we're going, and here's who's responsible for doing it. And then as we continue to work toward those dates, it's making sure that we hit those milestones that need to be done and that we are making progress on it, so it doesn't feel like nothing's happening and you're getting the same response or you're getting the same status that you always do. So start looking for that at our next meeting. Other than that, there is no other business that I have. I don't think there's anything for anybody else, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn or a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make the motion.
So there's a motion by Alderman Jarvis. Is there a second? There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No sign. We're going into executive session.